Memphis could do it without tanking, and this would be where they get Zach LaVine. So these are trade ideas I'm laying out. Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, and Devin Carter for Ja Morant and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. The Kings would also throw in a first-round pick here. And while that might not seem like a lot for Ja, because Zach LaVine, he's older, Memphis probably wouldn't value him too much. Malik Monk is good. He's a good role player. I'm sure they could get a decent amount for him. And getting off Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's contract, it would be good for Memphis. Devin Carter, a good young player that they could add to this young core they're building. One first-round pick, though, for Ja Morant. A few years ago, that would have seemed insane because Ja Morant was starting to look like the face of the NBA. Few off-court things, a few injuries, and here we are. I just don't think we're going to see a crazy superstar return for Ja Morant like we've seen for stars like Rudy Gobert, like we've seen for Damian Lillard. We're going to need... I just don't think they get more than 2 first-round picks. So while this might not be ideal for Memphis, it's an option. These two, I don't really like it for either teams, but I see why it could happen. You have the Suns and the Heat. The Suns, I see this as a Jalen Green for Ja swap. The Suns do this to hopefully revitalize Ja, to get more value, like to buy low, because the Suns need to build an identity. And obviously, I just don't see Jalen Green and Devin Booker working out. So if the Suns have to choose between the two, they're obviously going to choose their franchise player, Devin Booker, and trade Jalen Green away instead, getting Ja Morant. And Ja Morant's more of a true point guard, which is a better fit in Phoenix. But this would be pretty much, it depletes the Suns' depth more because obviously the Grizzlies aren't going to want Ja Morant for Jalen Green straight up. They're going to need a Ryan Dunn, maybe an Oso Aguardo, and some of those second-round picks that they got in the Kevin Durant trade. Again, I just don't see it as the best situation for Memphis. That's not a lot back, and Jalen Green looked really, really good last year, but the fact that he couldn't play with Sengun's a player that I feel like a lot of people could play with. Like, he's a very versatile player like Nikola Jokic, and I just don't really know how that didn't work together. And that's a concern with Jalen Green. So I don't love this idea. Then you have Miami Heat, and, people always throw around the options. Andrew Wiggins, just a bunch of salaries, but it just doesn't make sense for Memphis. The Heat don't have picks unless they're going to throw Kel'el Ware, Kasper Siakachonis, Pele Larson, Jaime Hawkins Jr., unless they're going to throw in some of their young players, which just doesn't really... None of those guys are super value. Kel'el Ware looked really, really good last season. Yakachonis is a prospect, not really a great player right now. Jaime is good, but he took a step back last season, and Pele Larson is nothing too special. So, unless this is again, Tyler Hero for Ja, which definitely makes sense for Miami, you risk the off-court things, but ultimately, in my opinion, you get a better player. But for Memphis, why would Tyler Hero be better than Ja? Because Tyler Hero, I see him more like a Desmond Bane. And I don't love it for Memphis. People also say the Nets, but the Nets are not even nearly ready to have an all-star. Like, they don't even have a core yet. Utah has more of a core than them, and Utah is definitely not ready. So I just don't see Brooklyn. The last team that I do see is the Toronto Raptors. They're on the thumbnail. And it makes a ton of sense for both teams. It makes sense because all I'm going to say is Ja Morant, Scotty Barnes, and Brandon Ingram would be a very good big three, but they would still have depth. They'd still have Jakob Poeltl, who is still a very high-level center. They would still have maybe one of RJ Barrett or Quigley. They would still have other pieces. They could make other moves, and they're still going to have a little bit of cap space, so maybe this isn't a trade for this season, but the off season, but the East is bad. So really, them trying to target Ja Morant would make a ton of sense this season. You ignore off the court things, which Toronto has been a place where it's no nonsense there. But if you can look past the off court and see Ja Morant as a player, I just don't see how this doesn't work out. He's very similar to Quickly, and we've seen Quickly be a very good fit next to Scottie Barnes. Even when Brandon Ingram gets older and he starts to phase out, having Ja Morant and Scottie Barnes in their prime could be insane for the Toronto Raptors. They get cap space after losing Ingram and Pirtle, and then they can go after someone else or a bunch of other good role players to build around the team, and I love it. Toronto also has picks I didn't mention. They got picks from the Pascal Siakam trade. They have a few Pacers picks left. They have all of their own picks, and again, I don't think if they can avoid it, they're not going to want to send more than 3. They're not going to want to send their own. I would love Ja to the Raptors. I think that makes a ton of sense. Ja needs a fresh start. He needs to prove that he can be not a problem off the court and he can be what he was looking like he was going to be a few years ago. Let me know if you think any of these trade ideas would be possible, what you would add, what you would take away, where else you think Ja Morant could go. But thank you so much for watching.